Chivalry 2's open beta is awesome. And if it's any indication of how amazing the game is going to be, we're in for a treat. I want to give you guys my thoughts today on all things Chivalry 2. But before I do, I would love for you guys to subscribe. And I appreciate the support. My YouTube channel has been growing very nicely. Thank you to everybody who subscribed and keeps coming back for more nonsense. And I promise you guys one thing. This video is going to be full of some nonsense because Chivalry is a phenomenal giant battle royale game, 32 on 32, where you are running around swinging medieval weapons at each other, trying to kill the enemy via any means necessary. Typically, that is going to involve you swinging a sword or an axe, or throwing a severed head, or throwing a sword, or throwing anything you pick up on the battlefield at your enemy, trying to flank and bash their brains in almost overly comedic gore and violence, all along while you're screaming and hooting and hollering and emoting. It's a really fun experience. Now, this isn't, obviously, this isn't the first game of this type. I have seen these before. I played a lot of a game called War of the Roses, which you could still pick up on Steam. Good luck finding a match. It's really, really a small group, but very similar idea to this. There are others, obviously. The first Chivalry, another Mountain Blade. There's a lot of these types of games, but the idea is, you know, medieval combat at its finest. And when you think of a game like this, you know, you got to think, what could they do to enhance the formula? What really is going to make this game stand out from all the other ones? Well, there's a lot of things. Environmental things, like hitting this post, swinging around and hitting people. That helps a lot. Fun environments. The fact that pretty much everybody who dies, at least on high-end PCs, their body's there. So by the end of the game, you're basically running through piles of gore and corpses on your way to fight more enemies, which is hysterical in of itself. The ragdoll physics are off the chain. And, you know, you have to think of what else could you do to enhance the formula. Well, the combat is very inviting. And I think that's something that For Honor, which is the other really big kind of variant of this, although on a much smaller scale. Usually it's 4 on 4, but For Honor, very, very, you know, medieval based. Obviously, you have medieval weapons and that kind of thing, and how you're fighting against each other. That has a very meticulous blocking, counter blocking system. This game is more kind of go ham. Swing your sword like a madman. It supports keyboard and mouse or controller. I played both. I actually prefer the keyboard and mouse a little bit in this experience. However, there are both available, which is nice. You have that option. But you know, it's less tactical in that sense, and I think it works for that because, you know, it's going to be about positioning. You know, standing there fighting an enemy one-on-one, you have your standard weak attack, heavy attack, you have an overhand like power attack, you have a thrust, but then you also have like a block, and depending on when you block, that will determine what you do. Is it a counter? Can you go for a quick parry? You know, there's different things you can do in combat. If that's too much to manage, though, don't worry about it. Just be in good positioning. Since it is a 32 on 32 game, and since you are going to be fighting against, you know, waves of enemies with waves of allies, it's about positioning yourself so that you can get a nice shot on the back. Think of like Gears of War, the cover-based system, in a sense. This is obviously much more dynamic, where you can run around and try to, you know, stab somebody in the back, or try to run around the, you know, the side of the map to take out the archers standing in the back, or try to, you know, crash the front line from a weird angle to try to get a shot, and just to kind of mix things up. There we go. And that works perfectly well. That's a perfectly viable strategy. And I like that about this game. I feel it's much more accessible. You know, I was reading some of the comments on the forums and talking with some other players in the chat, you know, in game. I've turned all that off now to protect the names of the innocents. But, you know, a lot of people felt that it wasn't very, you know, strategic, and it was too basic and, you know, get good. And I find that I was having a lot of fun being Rambo and just running in there and, you know, probably dying instantly. But I also found it was a lot of fun to kind of take my time and take a step back and kind of look through, the offense, figure out where I wanted to attack, use my abilities in a better way, and have a lot of fun. Now, the abilities themselves, don't get too excited about that, unfortunately. I think that's maybe one thing they could have enhanced the experience a little bit. While every character does have some sort of ability, it's not an ability in terms of like really ground changing or defying in the experience. You're going to probably default very quickly back to attack because some of the abilities are very situational. They take a really long time to kind of wind up and to get going and to kind of figure it out. As where in a game like this, it's really frantic. You're running around. There's not a lot of time to really kind of process what's happening and like think, okay, I'm going to get this ability and I'm going to stand here and use it. It's very situational. You don't know what's going to happen. You might crest a hill and suddenly you're on a 5-on-1 situation where you're like, great, I'm going to be able to take out a ton of enemies. And within seconds, because of the respawn times and because there's just a sheer amount of enemies on the battlefield, you may find yourself like me. I am completely surrounded by enemies and instantly get destroyed. So you're going to have a lot of that. Now, I think playing with friends and coordinating, obviously, that makes every experience better. But I would love a game like this where I can get 4 or 5 friends together and we can kind of all like march together and be a dominant force on the battlefield. That sounds like a ton of fun to me. And I feel like players who coordinate or teams who coordinate well are going to be the most successful at this because it's very easy to have these small pockets of very powerful offense that domino effect into larger areas. Now, this is just a giant open team deathmatch, and you do have that variant, but there is also a attack and defend variant where you have to kind of work your way through control points to siege a castle. And in that situation, if you had archers standing in like the nice firing lines, and you had a knight standing in the front with shields kind of blocking everything, and you had archers kind of flanking enemies, I really think you would have a lot of fun, being able to coordinate and position yourself well. But in this situation, most people like me are running around, really don't know what we're doing, chickens with our heads cut off, having fun. Speaking of heads being cut off, as I mentioned before, this game has some serious gore to it. I love it. It's way over the top. You could lower the settings if you want. I wanted them on. I wanted max ragdoll, max score, and boy, does it have it. You can pick up enemies' heads. You can pick up enemies' bodies and throw them. It's violent and it's goofy. I think one of the things that really make me laugh is the battle cry system, which does nothing other than just make you laugh hysterically. You can have your character scream at the top of their lungs wildly. There's different commands you can shout out, like yes, no, help you, thank you, whatever. Just nonsense, goofy stuff. And it does put a really kind of funny, comical spin on this. I mean, war, especially medieval war, was violent and brutal, no doubt about it. They didn't have the medicine that we did. They didn't, a lot of people were out there just getting arms and legs broken off. Very savage combat. So it's kind of funny that it's such a serious topic is handled with so much levity when you have these goofy rallying systems where you cry. Additionally, you can get your own arm cut off and you can still continue to fight. Obviously, you can't use a two-handed weapon anymore, but you can run around with just a one-handed weapon and just keep on going and having a blast. And you spawn in fast enough, so if you die, no big deal. Just jump in, get a new character going and have some fun. In terms of progression, each character does have a small amount of progression. I suspect this will be enhanced upon later. Basically, it's just in the form right now of unlocking different weapons. There isn't really much in the way of cosmetics or anything. I'm sure that will be coming. This beta really did seem to be more of a stress test in that sense, where they were putting you in very quick engagements where a lot of enemies were packed in a very small map. They're very adamant on the tooltips and everything to report any kind of weird network or latency issues that we saw. I can tell you in my, looking at the time, about 3 hours this morning of playing this game, I ran into 0 issues, and everything looked great. I didn't have any weird disconnects, any of that stuff. If they said this was the final product today, which I feel this is about 99.99999% final, I'd be okay with this product. I wouldn't be any, I wish there would be more stuff to do, but I would understand. It is a $40 game, which by today's standards, unfortunately, is a quote-unquote budget game. But Yeah, I loved it, and I had an absolute blast with it, and I can't wait to play a little bit more. There it was. I don't know if you saw it on my screen. Tis a flesh wound, and I only have one arm now. Oh, then I'm dead. So you'll go quick, but yeah, fun experience, fun game. The both the team deathmatch and the running around and doing the objective stuff was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this one. I think this is a home run. I think a lot of people will enjoy this. And if you haven't already done so, check out the beta. I think the beta might be opening up soon. I know when I watched it, when I started playing, it was a closed beta. I'm not sure what their plans are. But yeah, find a class you like, get out there, have some fun, and scream your head off, because I think the name of the game is smiling, and this game definitely had me smiling the entire time. So there you guys have my thoughts on Chivalry 2. I want to hear your comments below. Let me know what you guys thought. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.